just because, if not, then...
Yeah. No problem. We can begin with the assignment of Georgios.
Georgios, amazing. Let me check. Everything is all right. Yeah. Just because... Yeah, fantastic.
I can start sharing.
Yeah. When Iris and Laura enters, I will, allow them.
Okay.
Laura is not here, so I will disappear myself. Bye-bye.
So today we are going to correct the practical assignments, the entire class. Now we will begin with yours. That is really, really good. I don't have much to say here, just a couple of things that we can discuss a little bit. Well, let's start with the most general aspects with the title. You wrote it in English, which is great. You wrote the tempo. The original score, the character of the piece was in the character indication was in German. And you translated it.
No, the copy I had was in Italian.
Ah, okay. I thought that yours was in German also, and you translated it.
No.
Okay.
German to translate.
Yes, but no problem. You know that in music we can write. If you are in Germany, you can write it in German. If you are in Italy, you can write it in Italian. So there is no problem with that. But the indication is the same in the score I have that is in German. It says munter und straff, which means like lively. Well, what you write, vivace, deciso, like lively. Well, then I like this that you wrote flute in singular because you only used one. Then you specified 2 oboes. Actually, it is not necessary to write the number 2 there because if you write oboes, we understand that you are going to use 2.
Okay.
Because we cannot write more than 2 oboes in one staff.
See.
But it's okay. It is not bad to put the number. You're specifying that. Then English horn, you wrote it in singular. That means you're using 1, which is correct. Well, 2 B-flat clarinets.
The bassoon, initially I put 2 bassoons, but then I changed my mind and it was, and I put 1 voice, the first one there, but then I changed it and it's a remnant from the original solution. My bad. Oopsie doopsie.
Okay, yes, there I suppose that something happened because you wrote it in plural. But well, you used 1 bassoon and it's correct what you wrote. The part for the bassoon.
I have a question on how we group them. Because I put in every group, every 2 oboes and 2 clarinets, I put 1 stem up, 1 stem down. But I saw some copies that both stems are up, and I have made that one orange because even the accents, I wasn't sure. So they have 2 accents, or should have 1 accent because everything applies for the both. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I think that if I'm not mistaken, in different scores we find it written in different ways. But this what you wrote with 2 different slurs and articulations for each, that is a common writing. We can write it that way. The other way is some people don't use different stems, don't use stems going up and stems going down.
Especially this one, which is homophonic. They both sing the same rhythms.
Yes, exactly. When it is a homophonic texture, you can write like if there were chords.
Yeah.
And they are if they use the same articulation, that probably they do because it is a homophonic texture. There you can write only 1 articulation and 1 slur.
I see. I thought so. That's why I put the orange to remind me of the question. But cool.
But the way you wrote it here is perfectly clear and it's a common way of writing.
Okay. Cool.
then, well, in the bassoon, you wrote this number.
When I had 2 bassoons originally, I thought I would do 1 there, but I didn't.
Yes, so that is not necessary, but it's okay. In the last lessons, I should have told you to use these numbers, but I forgot. But well,
actually, I opened the Andler's book and found it.
Ah, great. Yeah, and there he uses, well, a lot of different orchestrators use these numbers to indicate which instrument has to play the part. So, well, here in the first 4 measures, everything is perfect. Also, another thing that you did is you copied you used the first system, the first 4 measures in the same system. So it's like very visually organized.
Mm.
In the first 4 measures, we have this. And we reach that little cadence there. If you hear noises, I'm sorry for that. People are protesting outside of my house. Maybe you hear some noises. Well, you use 2 clarinets and 1 bassoon. So, and well, then you added the bass clarinet. So you have 4 voices and 2 different timbres. So it is quite a homogeneous course, the one that you orchestrated. So that is correct. That is perfect. You also changed the articulation a little bit, and I think that's great. In this particular piece, that works because of the character. It's like, so it's great. Then, okay, the next 4 measures, you did the same. You didn't change the timbre here. You continued with the 2 clarinets and 1 bassoon. But there is a little thing that we can discuss here.
Mm-hmm.
You added the oboes just to make like a little emphasis on that half cadence, right?
Full cadence. Perfect. On the dominant, but perfect, nonetheless. Unless you think it's half for the 5th, but I think it's it is for the 5th. I think
we are ending on a D major chord on the dominant.
But I think we have modulated.
Well, actually, a modulation is something bigger that takes a lot of time.
It is a small piece. It didn't start there. It started on the previous bar, and it is a small piece. I think that's why.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, but it's just a matter of interpretation. Let's call it
in the cadence anyway. Yes, in the cadence.
Yeah, cadence, half cadence. Let's say that it's the same.
Okay.
Well, the important thing is that here I found 2 different reasons why you shouldn't use the oboes there, and it would be better to use the flute. The first reason is that there is a phrase that all the orchestrators use, and if you are reading the Adler, you will find this phrase in the Adler's book also, that oboes are prima donnas. Have you ever heard this phrase?
No, maybe actually, now you mentioned
it. Well, Adler uses this phrase, and all the orchestrators in the world knows this phrase. It's like the oboe have a nasal quality that really stands out. And so here you don't want the oboes to be very noticeable. You only want to emphasize a little bit that cadence. But we usually use the oboes to write solos or melodies for an important part.
The way I thought about it, if I can give my reason, because it would emphasize the cadence and it would be a better connection with the next theme, next period, which is the same, but with the oboes, to ease in the timbre, to hear it, not to be contrasting too much with the clarinets and then suddenly oboes, to hear the oboes at the end of that and then move on to the next oboe section.
Well, okay, actually, I think that that's how you thought about it, but the effect is not a good effect because it's what it says here. It thwarts the temporal contrast, because here you are looking for a contrast, because if you are using clarinets and bassoon, and then suddenly you begin with oboes and bassoon, that is a contrast, which is okay, because contrast in music is necessary and it's interesting to hear contrast. Contrast in music is good, but there you are like breaking your own decisions, because first you thought, well, I'm going to create contrast between the clarinets and the oboes, but then you are adding the oboes just before they start with the melody. So it's like you are upsetting that surprise.
Yeah, it sounded to me too surprising. That's what I thought.
Yes. Well, actually, but this kind of contrast between timbres, that you play 4 measures with one timbre and then suddenly 4 measures with other timbre, also a different family. Some composers write, for example, 4 measures of brass section and 4 measures suddenly of string section or woodwind section. And those contrasts are common in orchestral music. You also, that is related to form. How you analyze the form of the piece will affect the way you orchestrate those different parts. Here, for example, we are distinguishing like this piece is structured every 8 measures. First you analyze the piece, you discover that the piece is structured every 8 measures, and you orchestrate it following that discover that you did. Well, so to sum up, here I wouldn't use the oboes. I would add that part, but to the flute, in the flute.
Okay. Can it be ever too contrasting when you move to a different instrument?
Sorry?
Could it be, because I said it might be too contrasting, can it ever be too contrasting?
No, it won't be. I mean, there will be a contrast because you are changing almost all the instruments except the bassoon.
Let's say bad, the too much contrast.
I mean, there will be contrast, but that contrast will be okay, will be like interesting. So don't be afraid of creating contrast. Music is full of contrast, and there are a lot of parameters in music, and we can create contrast with the parameters. It's like when some composer write forte and then write piano, or the other way around. Piano and then suddenly forte. Those are contrasts in dynamics. You can make contrast with the register. You can play low, and then suddenly you can begin a phrase in a high register, or you can create contrast with with a lot of different things.
See.
So here the contrast is with the timbre, because the dynamic is the same.
He would this in maybe in a different way, because sometimes we have piano and then immediately subto forte, but there is also the crescendo if we want sometimes. Is there a way to do crescendo here from this timbre to the other timbre gradually? That's what I try to do, but probably not very successfully. But is there
you wanted to create a crescendo?
No, I didn't. I mean, as we contrast between piano and forte sometimes we don't want to contrast, sometimes we want to go gradually from piano to forte. Similarly, I assumed I could go from clarinet to oboe instead of contrasting with that similar crescendo effect, not louder, but to change gradually. That's what I mean. Yeah?
Yes.
Possible to be done.
Well, yes.
To add gradually instruments and then remove the old ones.
Yes, that is possible to do also. I mean, but this one is just we're trying to keep it simple because it's just like a practical assignment and you only have 1 week to do it. So we are like, the idea of this assignment was to learn how to use the transposing instrument and to start orchestrating for Woodwinds. So actually, it was not necessary what you did, that you added instruments. But well, it's okay if you wanted to create like that details. It's okay, and they work. But well, just to sum up, let's say, I would write that passage to the flute, with the flute.
I see.
Well, let's continue a little bit. Here you changed the timbre. So the first 8 measures, you did it with clarinets and bassoon, and now the next 8 measures, you do it with oboes and bassoon. That is perfect. Well, the first time you used the bass clarinet to add a couple of notes. I mean the tenor voice, and now you're using the English horn. That works perfectly because you are always looking for homogeneous chords. Here again we have the oboes and the bassoon. And there you added the clarinets. Well, there I think it works because the oboes were already playing the melody, and now you are adding the clarinets. It's like it's different what you're doing.
I'm confused. So one more time.
That you were playing the melody with the oboes.
Yes.
And now you added at the end the clarinets.
Yes.
That works fine.
Perfect. How does that work? Okay, I see, because it doesn't steal from the oboes. I understand. But yes. The oboes steal from the clarinet. I see.
Yes, exactly. Because remember that phrase. The oboes are prima donnas. They are very noticeable.
I had written for them mezzo forte, mezzo piano.
Yes, but apart from the dynamic you write, it's like the timbre of the oboe is very calls the attention of the listener. Well, here we have the other texture, the monophonic texture. You orchestrated it with clarinets. 2 clarinets and 1 bass clarinet.
No. 1 clarinet.
One clarinet. Sorry, I was reading here, and 1 clarinet and 1 bass clarinet. You're right. Well, that is great. And now, let's see. Well, this is a matter of interpretation. I would interpret the voice leading a little bit different here. To me, this passage, the bass of that passage is this one. So in my interpretation, we have 4 notes in the bass. But in your interpretation, the first 2 notes are notes of the tenor, and the other 2 notes suddenly the bass appears.
Wait, let me find the original score. I don't remember.
Well, the thing is that in that measure, in these measures, at the beginning we only have 3 voices in the original score.
See. Yeah.
So we have 3 voices, and you think that those three voices are the tenor, the alto, and the soprano. But you know, the soprano and bass relation in music is always an important relation and a structural relation. So if I see three voices, I think that the lower voice is the bass.
Yeah, same.
It is not wrong what you did. It's just a different interpretation of the voice leading.
It gives me a stronger cadence if I put the bass in the end. Pum, pum. I find fast cadence, ending of the phrase. Although it's not really the end of the case, the phrase hard.
Yeah, but that's why there I wrote those brackets, and that says tenor and bass. These two notes that you wrote on the English horn, on the English horn, I would have written them on the bass. But apart from that, it's okay. This is how you decided to write it.
By the way, yes, I suppose the English horn can fit with the clarinets, yeah?
Yes, there you can use it. It works.
From what I understand, because we didn't really talk about this, the flute is on the one side, the oboe and the bassoon are on the other side, and in the middle is the clarinet. The clarinet goes well with the other, but the bassoon and the flute go not too well together. That's how
the bassoon and the flute?
Yes, or the horn and the flute. The oboe and the flute.
Well, yes, the problem is that the oboes can overshadow easily the flute depending on the register. That is what we have to be careful about. But in this case, what you wrote here works fine.
Do you put an octave higher on the flute?
Yes, because you are not being like consistent with your own ideas. The first time you wrote it in unison with the clarinet. The flute is in unison with the clarinet, and the second time is an octave higher.
Yeah, I reinterpreted the piece. It wasn't meant to be. Yeah, I found the second one to be stronger, but maybe it is my perception. The second one to be stronger. But I'm not composing. You're right. I should be composing. I should be...
Well, yes, but I think I would use the flutes there one octave higher.
I understand. So I put it on the second one higher just to make it the second one more prominent, stronger, the second time.
Yeah.
But it's not how the piece was written, not the second one.
Yes, actually, yes, exactly. You're creating an emphasis that it doesn't actually exist on the real piece. So it is okay to add the flutes, but if you add them, because if you add the flutes, you are creating contrast between the two different textures. The monophonic texture, this one, and this one. So yeah, if you add them, it could be better if you double the flutes with the clarinet, but an octave higher.
Yeah.
Well, here you did the same. You used the first oboe. Well, this is great. It works. This works fine. And then you use the flute, doubling the clarinet, and
because I thought the oboe wouldn't go well with the flute, and I want to use the flute. In the first 4 bars, I used homophonic clarinet, and then monophonic. And then homophonic clarinet and flute. And I used monophonic oboe, but homophonic clarinet and flute again, because I didn't think oboe and flute will go well. I assumed. I wasn't sure, but I assumed.
Yes, that goes well.
Cool.
Yes, this part is well orchestrated. Works. Let me see. We're here. And now the recapitulation. You use the clarinets and the bassoon, and then clarinets and bass clarinet for doing this. That is correct. And now a big chord, you use all the different instruments. Now, there is a little problem with this chord.
Yes.
You are doubling, I am going to put it like this so we can see it all. You are doubling the oboes with the clarinets.
Mm-hmm.
So the inner voices are sounding with much power than the flute.
Mm-hmm.
But the important line there is this one. It's not the inner voices.
Yes. Huh.
Well, I wrote one solution there, one possible solution. It would be to write the flutes one octave higher, so you will listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, to write the rest of the voices with to write the original lines with the oboes and the clarinets doubling.
That on the top voices as well, everything. So all the clarinet and the oboe and the flute take the top voice.
Yes, well, the flute is playing a part that doesn't exist. Let's say you are doubling it one octave higher, and the real parts are being played by the oboes and the clarinets.
Yes, and the tenor on the English horn. And on purpose, yes. What you're asking on purpose, yes, on purpose. I did it. But you wouldn't use that.
Yes, that because you're adding one octave there.
Yes.
That was your intention, okay.
You picked it up.
Well, actually, it is not necessarily bad, but it is a little bit strange to use the clarinets. You're using the clarinets in the high register, then the bassoon in the middle, and then in the bass, the clarinet again. You are enclosing the bassoon with the clarinets.
Mm-hmm. I guess I am.
But it's okay. Enclosing is one of the type of course, of voicing, of course, that we saw. Do you remember that when we orchestrate chords, we can use different voicings, such as superimposing, interlocking, enclosing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one is enclosing, and it is okay. It works.
Say it again, interlocking, enclosing, and?
Superimposing.
Superimposing, doubling, no? That's what it is.
No, doubling is another term.
But is it not? What is superimposing? Remind me.
Superimposing is like when we create triads, remember that we superimpose first one element above the other.
Yes.
There is no doubling.
Yes. The opposite of doubling, I see.
For example, here I am in the orchestration you did, the flutes and the oboe are superimposing. Because the flutes are above the oboes.
Yes, not great. I see.
Well, now let's see the other practical assignments. So we have enough time to see them all. Let's go with the one of Iris. Iris, are you here?
Yes, of course.
Great. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Well, great. Let's see a couple of things here. First, the tempo. Remember that these issues that are related to writing are important. To write the tempo, the character. Well, then let's see the instruments. You use the instrumentation. You used one flute. You used two oboes, but remember that in orchestral music we write. If we are going to use two oboes, we write them in the same staff as Georgios did. The first oboe with stems going up and the second oboe with stems going down. Usually we don't use different staffs. Well, then you use the B-flat clarinet, but you wrote it in concert pitch.
Yes.
Why did you decide to do that?
Because it's easier to write.
I
should have changed it afternoon. Yes.
Well, yes, it's easier, but a little bit the idea of this assignment was to write with transposing instruments and to deal with that, with the transposition. And well, also it has some advantages when you write the real register that the performer is reading, because you can imagine the fingerings, for example, that the player is doing, and that kind of things. Also, something that Laura did is that she wrote a couple of notes that are out of range in the clarinet because she wrote in concert pitch. If you are writing with the transposition, you are more careful about that kind of things. And well, the same with the bass clarinet. This is important. We never use this clef with the 8 in the bass clarinet. That is only for the tenor, for the singer. The thing is that when it comes to instruments, we can say that instruments are transposing instruments. For example, we can say that the bass clarinet is a transposing instrument, but the tenor is a person, is a human being. And we cannot say, it doesn't make sense to say that a person is a transposing instrument. That's why we use that clef when it comes to the tenor, the person that sings. But well, so here we don't have to use that clef. Because the bass clarinet is already a transposing instrument. So you only have to use the treble clef.
Okay.
Well, and now let's start with the orchestration. You played the melody, you orchestrated the melody with the flutes. That is fine. You only forgot to write the dynamic. That passage is forte. Maybe the flute is in kind of a weak register there, but it's okay. You can use them if you want. Because here we are not with a full orchestra. This is just you are using a couple of winds, so it is okay. Then, well, you are using the clarinet and the bass clarinet. That is okay. But there is one voice missing here. Remember that in measure number 4 we have 4 different voices, and you only wrote 3 voices.
Yes.
So that was a mistake or was a decision?
No, it was a mistake. I missed those notes.
Okay. Well, yes, there I wrote that notes that are missing. I wrote them in the bassoon. Then you have the next passage. You are using the same orchestration, flutes with clarinets. And well, here you forgot to add that voice again. But here I wrote them with the tenor clef because they are high notes. Okay, that works. Then the oboe. So here you are changing the timbre. Instead of using flutes and clarinets, you are using oboes and bassoon. It's okay. It is a great change of contrast. Change of timbre, sorry. So this passage goes. Well, there you are missing one voice again. Every time there is a voice that you have to add, you are not writing that voice. You are deleting that voice. Well, then you continue with oboes and bassoon. This works to use oboes and bassoons because they are both double reed instruments. So you are creating a homogeneous texture there. Well, here you added these notes. Say that in this measure, we have 4 different voices, but you are using 3 different timbres. So there it sounds a little bit heterogeneous. So maybe it is not the best option, but it's okay. Maybe you could play those notes with the English horn, and that would be better. Well, let me see. It confuses me a little bit, the clef with the bass clarinet. Let me see. Yes, you can play that with the English horn. Well, here there is a problem here. You use the first oboe and the second oboe in unison. We usually avoid to use the same instrument in unison in the Woodwinds section because that is difficult to tune and it doesn't sound twice as loud. So it is better to use only one oboe and one bassoon. So remember that we usually try to avoid playing 2 different instruments playing in unison.
Okay.
Let me see. Well, then you use the flutes, the bass, the clarinets, bass clarinet, and bassoon. Well, you're using 3 different timbres there. Remember that we always, when we orchestrate, we are looking for homogeneity. And if you use 3 different timbres, it sounds heterogeneous. But okay, so keep in mind that it could be more homogeneous, just that. Well, here, I don't like very much this solution to this passage because here here we have two different textures. One texture is the monophonic one. Monophonic means only one melody. That is this one. Here, there we have only one melody. And now we have another texture that is a homophonic texture. That goes like this. And so there, if we look at the piano score, that part goes like this. So the upper voices are going by thirds. And there you invented a line for the oboe that doesn't exist. Is that clear?
Sorry, I missed the last. So the oboe, where is the thing that I invented?
The line of the oboe, this line, let me see. The one that is circled with red.
Mm-hmm. Ah, yes.
That line doesn't exist.
Oh. I mean, because it has 3 notes in the original score, no?
Yes, but that is because the part, if I play the part in the piano, it's like this. So there are 2 voices that end here. This is the end of that phrase. And you assume that those notes are the beginning of the phrase. So the important thing to notice is that we only have 2 different textures. One that is this one, and the other one that is this one. And so now you have again in the bassoon and the oboes this texture. So you have to keep in mind that which are the different textures. One is a monophonic texture and the other one is a homophonic texture.
Okay.
Then let me see. Well, there is one voice missing again here. Let me see where we are. In that part, there is no bass. You didn't write the bass. That goes like this. I don't know if you decided to delete the bass or maybe you forgot to write it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I forgot.
Okay. Well, then we have the recapitulation again. This time you do it with flutes and clarinets. So it's the same as the first time, the first measures. And now, well, again, remember that we don't use 2 instruments to play in unison because they usually play out of tune, and that creates problems in rehearsal. So it is always better to use 1 instrument, except when we are creating an orchestral tutti. There you can double the instruments and you can play in unison because the important thing in the tutti is the effect of the forte. But here that we only have a couple of voices, it is not a good idea to play in unison with different instruments. Now let's see. Well, here there are a couple of things. First, let's look at the flute. You wrote 2 consecutive 8 rest, and that is a little bit like uncomfortable to read. It is better to use a quarter rest. And then the bassoon is in the wrong register. That should be 1 octave higher. Remember that the bassoon, it is not a transposing instrument, so that the real lines there goes 1 octave higher, the real part. So instead of this, it should be written this.
I see.
And well, finally, we have like a couple of pages with rest. That is absolutely not necessary.
Yeah, sorry, I realized when I already sent it.
Yes, well, that is just try to remember that to double check that things, because if you print this, you will have a 1 page that you don't need it. Well, just that. Apart from that, good, the orchestration works. Remember, the important thing of this practical assignment was to write to use the transposing instrument and to deal with transposition. So try to keep in mind that when we write scores, we usually the transposing instruments have different key signatures. Now let's go with the one of Laura. Well, here, first of all, the title, you wrote 2 different words and 2 different mistakes. So 1 mistake in each word. I know that maybe you're thinking, well, this doesn't, that this is not related to orchestration. And yes, you're right, this is not orchestration, but you look more professional if you don't make this kind of mistakes. Well, just that. Just be careful when you type. Then the tempo. Remember that we always write the indication of tempo, character, dynamics. Also, here there are no. Yes, you wrote the dynamic for the clarinet, but you didn't wrote the dynamic for the bassoon. So we have to write the dynamic for every instrument. Well, now here you wrote 1 staff for the flute, but you didn't use any flute in the whole piece.
No, that's just because it was one of the things that came with MuseScore.
Okay, well, I don't use that program, but I'm sure that there has to be a way to delete the stuff that you don't use.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you are creating the score, you cannot choose the flute, and so you write only for the oboe, clarinet, and bassoon. Well, but just you have to know that the instruments that we are not going to use, we don't write them in the score. Well, then remember that the B-flat clarinet is a transposing instrument. I don't know why you decided to write it in concert pitch.
I don't know. I just kind of did. And it just
Okay.
gets easier.
Yes, I know that it is easier. At the beginning, it's hard to deal with transposition, but well, we have to get used to it because it is a big part of music to deal with transposing instruments. They exist, and so we have to learn how to deal with them. So here, the piece is in G major. If you want to write for the clarinets in B flat, you have to write that part in A major. Because remember that the clarinet sounds a major second lower than written.
Yeah.
So if the piece is in G major, we have to write the clarinet with the key signature of A major.
Okay.
Well, that's it. Well, here with the basons, it is okay what you did because you used two different voices for the basons. But here is not the best way to write it because there are a lot of rest, like floating in the air. So one way of writing this passage for the basons would be to delete the rest and to write the number 2 that I wrote with red. So you write the number 2 and a dot. That means that you want only the second basun to play that passage.
Okay.
So we don't need to have a couple of rest floating there. And here, when you want the two players to play simultaneously, you write the letter A and 2 and a dot. That means that A2, you want the two players to play. And well, here you have to write the number 2 again because you want the second player to play and so on. You can use the number 1, 2, or A2. That means that both of them are playing. Well, apart from that, your decision is great of using the clarinet and the bassoon there. Then you use one timbre for the first 4 measures, and then you change the timbre in the next 4 measures. That is a good decision. That is correct. So from the measure 5, yes, in measure 5, you are using oboes and bassoon. That is okay. Here, the bassoons, in the bassoon part, you're writing with a lot of letter lines. You are using 3 letter lines, and so there it could be better to use the tenor clef.
Okay.
Well, here you're also you have 2 bassoons, but you're writing 3 voices.
Yeah, I think I was just trying to make sure I used all the notes that were in the original score.
Okay, well, remember that when we write for orchestra, the first instrument, for example, the first bassoon, goes with stems going up, and the other one with stems going down. And here, you could have deleted the rest.
Yeah.
Well, then you continue with the another thing is that here at the beginning you wrote the instruments. You wrote the flute, the oboe, the bass clarinet, and the bassoon, and here you didn't write anything. Usually we use the abbreviations, so we can see which instrument is playing each part.
Good afternoon, WKMT Teacher speaking.
That's why I wrote the abbreviations with red.
Okay.
Because here is easy because we only have 4 instruments, but when you are with a full orchestra and you have 20, 30 different instruments, it becomes a little harder to distinguish which instrument is playing if we don't have the abbreviation.
Yeah.
Well, this is okay. This works fine. And now let me see this passage that here there are a couple of problems. Tell me, how are the players supposed to play this passage in the clarinet, the one that is marked with red? Because there you're writing 4 different voices.
Which? Where?
This one.
Oh, yeah. Well, the bottom note is meant to be for the second clarinet, and the top notes was meant to be for the first clarinet.
Well, but there you only have 2 clarinets, so you cannot write 4 voices. The solution there, it would be to write those notes, the F sharp and the A, in the oboe part.
Okay.
And well, that's it. So the oboes have to play this, and they end end the phrase with the F sharp and the A.
Okay.
Well, here you are using the extreme lower register of the clarinet, but it is okay because you are using the range of the clarinet that is possible to play. But I will see that here you had to use a lot of different lecture lines. You're using 1, 2, 3, 4 lecture lines because if you write in the key, if you write for the transposing instruments correctly, you don't have to use all that lecture lines. Well, what else? And here a couple of problems with writing. Here you are writing rest, and suddenly you add 2 different voices with rest.
Yeah, I think that was just a silly mistake.
Okay, well, here the same. You wrote 2 different voices to play rest, but it's okay. Well, here the same with the abbreviations. You are not writing the abbreviations at the beginning of each stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a big problem. This is absolutely impossible to play because you are assigning notes that are out of range. So you want the clarinet to play this. But that is not possible to play the lower part. It's not possible to play it on the clarinet because those notes doesn't exist.
Yeah, I should have put them in the bassoon.
Yeah, in the bassoon, or you could have used a bass clarinet, maybe. Yes, the 2 different options that you have there is to use a bass clarinet or to use the bassoon. But, well, that is important because we always have to be careful of not writing notes out of range because, well, that is impossible to play. And, well, finally, you orchestrated this cadence. with oboes, clarinets, and bassoon. That is okay. That I mean, you have 3 different timbres. It will sound a little bit heterogeneous, but it's okay. You can do it, and it works. Well, that's it. Only I would like Laura and Iris to remember about the transposing instruments, and so remember that the clarinet, the English horn, the bass clarinet are transposing instruments, and keep in mind that the registers of those instruments, and that they read with a different key signature. Apart from that, the 3 orchestrations were great. So now we are on time. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, we're done. Well, in this course, we have seen a lot of different things. We didn't see the brass section. That is another interesting, it is a new world, let's say, to see the brass section, how different instruments in that section works.
We have to set, I mean, the foundation.
And then another different world is the percussion section. There you have hundreds of different instruments. Well, I don't know if we are going to make like a different course to see the brass section and the percussion section. That would be great.
It depends of basically
as well. I hope you